Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I trust everyone is safe and well. Welcome to this week's Open Classroom webinar. New version release week is always a very exciting time for everyone at Knowledge Base, with this year the company deciding to rebrand our company image and on the same day as our new version launch our new website. If you haven't been along to www.civildesigner.com since Monday, please do so now, where you can request a copy of the latest version 8.2, on our front page. Over the last 3 weeks' webinars, we have pretty much covered all the new functionality included in version 8.4, which can be found at the bottom of our Support Center page and on the Services pull-down menu as the FAQ library. In this library, please go and punch 8.4, where you'll be able to view all the new videos we've put together in detail listing the new functionality included in version 8.4. Back to today's webinar, which since this being version 8.4 release week, we have decided to do an overview or recap of the last 3 pre-launch webinars from the last 3 weeks. We will once again be joined by Cameron Boyle, Christopher Smith, and Andrew Cole, the usual suspects, covering all the modules listed on your screens right now. During the 3 presentations today, please feel free to use the text chat service in your GoToWebinar app to ask us any questions you may have during the various presentations. So, good afternoon again, Chris, and please take it away.
Thanks, Charles, and welcome everybody to this segment of Civil Designer 8.4. This segment will be for all your pipes. So it's your sewer, your stormwater, and your water. And we're going to have a look at all the different new features that you'll find in 8.4. The first feature that we're going to have a look at is this automatic sewer house connections. So in the past, you would have to click on each house connection, and you would then determine where the best position of that house connection for the sewer would be. In the new version of Civil Designer 8.4, you can now automatically assign your house connections, and it will go over the whole property or the whole town and find the best location and placement of your sewer house connections. The sewer house connections have always been used to obtain the invert level of the house connection, run at a 1 in X slope. Plumbing, for instance, would be 1 in 60, and obtain the invert level at the main sewer pipe, whether that be on a mid-block or in the road. Then you would generate flow contributions to your network. So if it was a new design, you would be using those flow contributions to size your network. If it was an existing design, you would be using those flow contributions to check where there are capacity issues within your network. The other item that is great for the sewer house connections is the ability to create a dynamic table, or list as we call it, in your layouts. This is to give to the contractor for them to set it out on site. You'll see now with the new automatic house connections, it goes across the whole site and finds this all for you. There may be 1 or 2 that haven't really connected properly, or they've assigned a road house connection instead of a mid-block. It's easy to click on these, right-click sewer operations, and change these. As I say, this could be 1% or even as little as 3 or 4 house connections that need to be changed. You can see these automatic house connections are going to save you a great deal of time. If we look at the water connections, you'll see in the water, it's always been the ability to generate a demand contribution to your network. This is to check capacities across your network, whether it be new or as-built. You would also use this as a plumbing exercise to find all the fittings that are required to put these house connections in place. And once again, it can generate a table, or list as we call it, which is dynamically linked to your model, and this has the ability to give you all your setting out information so that the contractor can install these pipes at the exact location where you've designed them. So with Civil Designer, these water house connections can automatically be determined. It'll first go and scan your property to find double short connections, double long connections, and then it's going to look for the single connection. As you can see, this is going to save you a lot of time with your project. You no longer have to go and individually locate where you want to place your water house connections. There are going to be one or two places where you need to go and place in a house connection manually. There has been a lot of updates to the display settings. Go and check out all the new display options that are available in all the modules. The nice thing about the water, as I said before, it gives you the quantities for all your connections as well as your flow contributions from your network that's required to service that town. Let's move over to the gravity pipes. So the sewer and the stormwater, there's been quite a lot of features that have been put into the geometric tools. We'll have a look at these. The first that you'll notice is the ability to add nodes in between two nodes. So when you're drawing the nodes, if the pipe length gets longer than 80 meters, it will automatically insert a node. That is optional. You can switch that feature off if you prefer the older way of doing it. And then the other feature that we've added is the ability to offset. So have an offset from any CAD line. Here I can see I'm inserting a CAD from a CAD line. I'm inserting pipes, and it automatically will trim these to insert a node at the intersection of these CAD lines. This tool isn't going to work when there isn't going to be a intersecting point between the two CAD lines. So I always say to right click and use the road reserve feature or the mid blocks feature, depending on which service you're going into. That'll look for the boundary and it will then offset from that boundary for you. And then you can always tie them up using the graphical join. And here you can see I should have followed through that manhole, which I did in the end. Once again, also I like to switch on my display settings when I'm working with joining with different nodes, because the prompts will ask me if I want to join to a certain node, and that's why I like to have the node name switched on. I'll use that feature again for displaying offsets. So I'm drawing an offset, and we'll choose the first node's name, and here you can really see where it will trim the pipe back when connecting. On the right hand side you'll see the pipe trims back, creating manhole 14. I'll run along this route, and when I get to the tie-in point, there's two questions that will ask me. The first will ask me, do I want to tie into the node? And I'll say no. It'll then ask me if I want to tie into the link, which I'll say yes. This will then create two nodes, which I'll just delete the one that's closest to the boundary. It's always better to be a little bit away from the boundary than to be too close to the boundary. Great. Looking at the vertical alignment, you'll see there's a new feature now. When you have manholes or branches coming into a vertical, we will hatch that for you. And you can also put the text on so you can see the invert level of that pipe. This is going to save you a lot of time because you'll automatically know the manholes that are hatched. You won't be able to raise the invert level of it because there is an incoming branch that you have to consider. You are able to move manholes left and right, but the pipes have to be collinear. So you can create the pipes to be collinear inside Civil Designer's vertical alignment. Yeah, I switch on the automatic tracking so you can track where along the pipe in plan view those manholes are. So you can see that this pipe is horizontally straight, but vertically it's not straight. So I'm going to just do a linear interpolation between the two, make it now collinear, and now you'll be able to move the manholes up and down. I can choose a new location for that manhole. You can also delete manholes in the vertical alignment, and you can insert a range of evenly spaced manholes. So I always say click on the downstream side first, and then click on the even spacing item. You'll click on the upstream manhole. So it first asks you what is the spacing you want, and then it asks you for the first manhole's name, and it'll place those in. You'll see those are automatically added in the plan view, and you can press close. this feature for the 80 meters really helps for people that are doing bulk stormwater lines. Here you can see I'm using the old tool, so I've switched off the 80 meters by zeroing the max length. And you can see it just puts in 2 manholes. But when you're working with bulk lines, you may want to have the automatic 80 meters. There you can see it automatically places in extra manholes along the route. That's going to save you a lot of time when doing the bulk sewers and the bulk stormwater lines. And moving on to stormwater, Civil Designer 8.4 has incorporated the South African Weather Service into Civil Designer. Switching the boundaries on will give you a graphical representation of the boundaries for which the South African Weather Service's data can be found. You can also search. It's always good to rather search for a street address rather than the city's name, as the marker could be far away from your site. Once it's got the Latin long in, you can then press OK. Here you can see it's got the lower, the normal, and the upper levels for each return period up to 200 years. It also will bring in the durations, so you'll have your different durations of storm. You can still choose the DDF, but we're going to use the South African Weather Service grid. And there you can see it's brought in the grid information. We can press save and close. That saves it to the DT8 file. Here you can see you can now, during the analysis, you can now choose whether you want a Chicago rectangular or triangular storm. Moving on to the lids and top slabs for your manhole structures, you will notice that we now drape it onto the road surface. Please refer to the video if you want more information on how to get it, which settings to change so that it recognizes the top of the road surface. It'll always take the slope of the road or sidewalk. That brings me to the end of all the new features for all the pipe networks in Civil Designer 8.4. Have a great day further. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Chris. That was great. We're now going to hand over to Cameron with his highlights of the new 8.4 functionality included in the roads module. Cameron, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Charles. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. As you already know, today we're going to be looking at a quick recap on the new 8.4 functionality found inside the roads mode. I'm going to start off by going to our display settings or pressing F10 on your keyboard. And then looking on the top here, we have the option now to switch on the draft text. In previous versions, we used the draft text found in your terrain mode, whereas in 8.4, we've now introduced the draft text inside the roads module. Looking further down here, you have the option to go and make changes to your road name settings. And if you do go and make one change, you then have the option to apply that change to all the roads. If you go and select the road strings option on the left-hand side, you'll see there's a new tab there called Textures. You can now apply one of 40 textures to your different road elements. These textures can also be applied to your road components. This is found under Tools, Component Editor, and then on the right-hand side, specifying which texture to use. These textures will be applied when you render the view in 3D. Then moving on to junction functionality. If we go to Junctions and we edit junction, you are now able to click anywhere in the vicinity of this junction. Civil Designer will automatically pick up the closest junction. Moving on to the left curve option. Two things you'll notice: the text has changed, and you now have these red lines showing you a preview of what your bow mouths look like. So if I do go and make a change to, let's say, the center radius, and click on another cell, you can see the bow mouth preview has been updated, as well as the text position is moved out of the way. If I were to, for instance, go and specify a taper in my lead out information, straight away you can see what the end result would look like. You no longer have to go through this process, click on OK, only to find that the result wasn't quite what you were looking for. This preview would also be visible if you go and select Extract from CAD Entities. Moving on to mini roundabouts. Again, I'm going to Junctions, Edit Junction, and clicking on the mini roundabout. Looking at the crossfall options, in 8.3 we introduced the draped option where the mini roundabout was draped onto the main road. In 8.4 we applied that principle to the crown and crossfall option as well. So we've refined the design methodology. Previously, the roundabout design was treated as a double junction, whereas in 8.4, as mentioned, the roundabout is draped onto the main road. Parallel strings are then created and crossfall grades are applied accordingly. The triangulation as well as the vertical grading has also been enhanced, resulting in a smoother end product or design. And on the subject of junctions, moving on to the Stockdale roundabout, if I go back to Junctions, Edit Junction, and go and click on the roundabout design, if you have done this design in version 8.4, you'll see there's an icon here that is active. Clicking on it, you can now go and change any design element. As an example over here, you can see the circle crown line has been highlighted. If I wanted to go and make changes to it, I could click on yes. In this case, I'm going to go and select no. Civil Designer then goes and highlights the next design element, looking at crown line number 1. If I wanted to make changes there, I could. Going to crown line number 2, you can see it's highlighted. Going to number 3, and then finishing off with number 4. You could again go and specify a different lane width, crossfall, and tie-in slope. If you're happy with that, click on OK. In 8.4, you'll see we introduced a new icon here to apply a spline through a point. As an example, if I go to Display Settings, switching everything off, and then just turning on the center crown line. If I go and select that icon, indicate a start vertex, end vertex, and then where I want the spline to go through. You can see the long section's been updated accordingly. Returning back to the previous project, changing my zoom view. A very nice, powerful function in 8.4 is the point control functionality. Taking a look at that, we go to Tools, Template Paths, select a template editor, and then selecting Write Compulsory. In version 8.4, you can either edit or insert an edge, and you'll see that there's an additional option here of point control name. So you go and specify a point on your template cross-section, and that point could target a CAD entity, and changes will be made as the entity changes. You can apply it to left and right compulsory points, where you can include your components, and in this case I've gone and put in a V-drain, as well as your cut and fill conditions. Remember that when working with components in your template, you have the option to go and edit it and specify which of the 40 textures you'd like to go and use. Using these point controls, I'm going to go and turn on the CAD layer to target. So the objective here is to take the left compulsory point target it to this CAD layer, making the walkway wider. I can do this by going to Alignment, Regression, Point Controls, specify the point control name, specify if I want to apply it to all the templates or only to particular templates. You have the option to turn it on and off, so you could run different scenarios to see what the results are. Just to the right of that, you have the option of specifying that you want to apply this point control horizontally, vertically, or both. Looking at the height options, if I go and right-click from Entities, I could go and specify a particular height, and in that case, the elevation would remain constant. Looking at the next option from Entities that we'll use in this case, the elevations will be picked up from the polyline that you see at the bottom. Interpolate on DTM surface. You also have the option to retain a grade, and in that case the grade will be picked up from your template information. With some of these options, you also have the option to apply your height constant. Selecting my target, I go and right click on this arrow and then go and select entity of choice. So as I go and move my cursor, you can see that the different options are highlighted for me. Selecting the polyline, you can either accept the given channage range or go and customize your own. You have the option of specifying a description as well. Click on OK, and then go and click on the recalculate icon. Civil Designer's already gone and calculated the horizontal alignment. We will now do the rest. Just to see what this looks like in a render view, I'm going to go and right click and select render view. Changing my zoom view. So here we can see that the sidewalk has been made wider, and where my cursor is positioned now, that is the lowest point. The emphasis being that this V-drain doesn't have to follow the grade of the road's vertical alignment. You can go and put in your own grades or slopes using this point control functionality. Also take note of the different textures in the 3D view. If I go and right click, select render settings, there I've gone and specified to enable the textures, and those textures are pointed out under the road display settings. In 8.4, you'll also notice that you have the option to maximize your render view. Moving on to our last project, your curb groups now are applied to the entire project and not individual roads. As an example, I've got Victoria Road current. If I go to Tools and I go and specify curb groups, you can see I've got 5 curb groups. If I go and select Load Group and go and specify which one to use, I'm going to select the Vanstone curbs and combination curbs, which we currently don't have as an option. If I were now to go and change my roads, let's say Cambridge Road, going back to Tools, Curb Groups, you can see the combination curbs has been applied, and that would be applicable to all the roads. Closing that, moving on to your volumes. If I go and select Mass Haul Volume, in 8.4 you can see we've added an additional option here of roadbed prep. You go and specify the layer depth of your roadbed prep. Civil Designer then looks at the layer works. When layer works falls below the ground line, then we use the layer work line. Whenever the ground line is beneath the layer works, we then use the ground line to calculate the volume of your roadbed preparation. Then also take note of your design data source. You have the option of subgrade or cross-section. Clicking on Calculate and running through the process. So looking at our output window, you can see that the road bed preparation volume has been included. Moving on to report quantities. If I go back to area volume, report quantities, you'll see at the bottom here we have an additional tab called volume details. When selecting that, this is the design data source I pointed out earlier. You can go and specify a topsoil to strip as well as your compaction factor, and these settings would be applied globally to all your roads in this particular project. If you do, for instance, go and select the cross-section option, the layers that you specified per road would be utilized in your volume calculation. Click on OK. And then looking at the new options as far as custom report is concerned, let's go and create a custom report looking at combination of volumes. Specify the report type. Specify which roads you would like inclusive or included inside this volume calculation. If you want to skip roads, you can press Control on the keyboard, click on Select. Click on OK, and then selecting the option. In 8.4, we now give you the option to go and edit the report. So you could go and make changes. Let's say we're looking at all the volumes now. You could, for instance, go and change your report type as well. At the bottom, I'm then going to click on Select All. You can see all the roads are now selected. Click on OK, and my custom report has been updated. On the right-hand side, if we did specify road bed preparation, it is included in the volume calculations. You'll also find that if you now go and right-click and go and select Write All to File, you can go and specify which report you want to write to file, what type you want to save it as, and where you'd like to go and save it. You'll also notice that in 8.4, there's been a speed improvement on the calculation of road strings. That's all from me for now. Until next time, back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Cameron. That was great. We're now going to head over to Andrew Cole for his highlights of the new functionality in version 8.4, included in the Design Center, Survey and Terrain, and CAD Pro modules. Andrew, please take it away.
Good day. The first survey and terrain enhancement that I'm recapping on today is the brand new flood levels function. This function allows you to calculate the volume of water that a surface can hold and is a very useful tool for flood risk assessments. It's run in the terrain module and it's a brand new function called flood levels. We would have to specify a surface and then your flood level, so recorded flood level or whichever level you'd like to assess. We do have a maximum level button that will pick up the highest level on the site. And then your depth increments are related to your volume output, the volume of water being held, or your output to CAD. We automatically then calculate the volume of water this surface can hold. You can view this in the output bar. We have various outputs to CAD as well. You can run the function at various levels and at various depth increments. In this case, I'm outputting the flood level as a solid fill and then just running it at different levels on a different surface. Once again, it's that solid fill at the actual flood level. If the CAD layer has been used previously, these flood level CAD layers that the data gets generated onto, you get prompted if you want to clear that data. and store your new data, but you can always create additional CAD layers. You can manage those CAD layers out of your control center as well. So the other CAD options are a polyline at the flood level only. You can also have polylines at every depth increment. And then the final CAD output from the flood levels function would be solid full at every depth increment, which gives you quite a nice visual representation of your rising flood levels. And to view the actual levels, you can just switch on your normal contours. Moving on to the next major enhancement in Civil Designer 8.4, we've enhanced the cut fill shading functionality, also known as the different shading. Previously, you had to generate a DTM grid and generate a different surface, but now in the display settings, we've automated the process. So you just select your two surfaces, click on the generate button, and the program then automatically will generate the cut fill shading for you. And you can then clearly see your cut and your fill areas based on those pens that you select for the cut and the fill area. We've also added the strings and surface option. So between any platform string or road strings and a base surface, we then generate the cut and the fill shading. So a very useful tool that's been added in Civil Designer 8.4. A further enhancement with the cut fill shading has been the addition of the difference shading key. So if you run your normal plot routine with our built-in sheet files, the standard plot templates, we've now added under the plan lists, we've added a clear all button. You can clear all the selected lists that you want to plot, and we've added a different shading key, that different shading key. And you can clearly see the fill and the cut. The sign would be the cut, the negative values, you taking material away. You can also plot with different colors, and we've got that gradient color option. So we'll just regenerate with the new colors and select the gradient shading. And there you can see the color variations for the fill and the cut areas. Just running the plot again, so you can see the gradient colors coming through. So your fill there in the different shades of blue, the fill being the positive values. So we adding material, and then the negative would be where you're removing material, which in this case is the red section, the red shading. Okay, then moving on to the next feature in Civil Designer 8.4, it's the ability now when you're plotting your drawings with the setting out tables, you can now truncate your tables. So in this case, I'm just plotting the setting out data for this platform, and you can see the points that I've listed are quite excessive and the list is quite long. But now in the sheet file editor, if you go to the actual list input area, the maximum number of rows can now be set. So in this case, just making it 50. So if I force the dynamic regenerate of these tables, these setting out tables for the platform, you can see they've been truncated and reduced to 50 rows per column. Some further enhancements to our plotting routines or our plot templates, the sheet files, is that over and above the improvement to the coordinate list, we've added a listing for your strings, your platform strings. So if I go into the sheet file settings, there's a new listing for the strings platforms. The only change from your normal coordinate list is that the strings listing has got a chainage option. So pretty much identical to the normal coordinate list. but the strings tables do now have a string chainage listed. So that's a nice new addition as far as the plot tables go. Just running a plot generate for these 3 string platforms, and I'm selecting to plot the strings list. Okay, there you can see the listing for the 3 string platforms. So today's webinar is more of an overview of all the new functionality in Civil Designer 8.4. But if you'd like to see a more detailed video of these new functions and features, you can just go onto the civildesigner.com website of ours and have a look at the open classroom and the FAQ videos, which gives you a lot more detail. Okay, and then the next enhancement that I just want to recap on is the enhancement to the 3D render view. You can now maximize your render view area, which would then just automatically close the properties and your output bar just to maximize the render view. So you would just have to restart it once you've activated that setting, and then you'll get your render view, your 3D view of the site maximized and displaying on your full screen. On the CAD side, we've implemented a very powerful new parallel copy algorithm, which can handle just about any situation. In this case, making 11 copies of this polyline with acute angles and bulges. So a very versatile algorithm that can be used to enhance some of our other functionality. We've also fine-tuned the snap and clip tidy algorithm. So this function normally tidies up your CAD drawings, especially your cadastral drawings. So joining up lines that don't quite meet, and removing or trimming and extending lines that aren't quite intersecting. This function can also remove short unnecessary lines and do a check and remove duplicated lines. You just run the function and then set your tolerance settings and define the area that you'd like to tidy up in your cadastral or CAD drawing. And Civil Designer would do the rest very efficiently and very quickly as well. And as you can see, a nice neat drawing with the lines neatly trimmed and intersecting. So that snap and clip tidy function would be very useful if you're going to be using our new parcels functionality. The parcels function creates a record of each property on your site from the property boundaries as defined in your drawing. You can also define your parcels graphically, and once you've got all your parcels, you can then use them to add the property sewer and water connections automatically for the whole site. Additionally, the new parcels functionality in Civil Designer 8.4 would allow you to add street numbers to your properties. So you'd have the increment that you could set to do all the even numbers on the one side and all the odd numbers on the other side of the road. So this would be useful if you're working with the street number or the street number instead of the earth numbers with existing water records. A further CAD enhancement is the new draw wipeout function that we've added in Civil Designer 8.4. So this allows you to define an area and then mask or hide all the underlying entities. Furthermore, you've got visibility settings for the frame of the wipeout. You can select to have the wipeout frame visible or not, and then you can also set it to be visible while working, but then select to have it not plotted. Another very useful enhancement in 8.4 is the addition of a layout manager. So if you have a drawing with multiple layouts, the layout manager now allows you to reposition those layouts for easier access. So you can select a layout, and in the layout manager you can move your layouts to different positions. In this case to the top, so I have access to that layout tab a lot easier. Just makes it a lot quicker and easier to work with layouts. The last two enhancements that I want to cover in this recap has to do with the PDF import export. So if you have multiple layouts, once again, and you'd like to export to PDF, you got an option now to select which of those layouts you'd like to export to PDF. So that's quite useful. No need to publish your drawing before exporting to PDF anymore. And then the final PDF enhancement is when importing a PDF, you now have a preview of your PDF, and we've got some optimization on the images and the geometry of your PDF. So once again, this was just an overview of the Civil Designer 8.4 enhancements, and more detailed how-to videos are available on our website. Thanks for watching, and cheers for now.
Thank you, Andrew, Chris, and Cameron, for your classes today. And more importantly, thank you very much to all of you who have attended today, as well as the last 52 webinars in our webinar lockdown series. Please remember, if you would like any further information with regards to Civil Designer, please use the email address listed on your screens right now. And if for some strange reason you have not received your version 8.4 link via email, please use the same address and we'll send it to you ASAP. As I demonstrated earlier, please find the new feature version 8.4 FAQ videos on our FAQ page in the Support Center section of our website under the Services pull-down menu. Once again, thank you very much for your time today. See you all next week, Thursday, at the same time and same place using the same link. Have a great afternoon, weekend, and goodbye for now.